Welcome back to Business Live. Tonight, in our first story, the National Food and Buffer Stock Company has received a 50 million cedi check from the ADB Bank for grain purchase from farmers, mainly under the Planting for Food and Jobs initiative. Manager of ADB Bank, Dr. John Kofi Mensah, says the presentation is part of efforts by the bank to strengthen the agriculture sector.
The 50 million cedi check was presented by ADB Bank to the National Food and Buffer Stock Company, which was an increase from last year's amount of 20 million cedis. The amount will assist the company purchase grains from farmers, mainly under the Planting for Food and Jobs initiative. According to the managing director of ADB, they are hopeful the contribution will help address some of the challenges in the agri sector.
We have accelerated our inputs in terms of finance into agriculture. We have moved it up, and we believe that we have to encourage the farmers to produce more. We also have to encourage, because once the productivity is moving up, our portfolio will also be doing well. We have to reduce post-harvest losses. We have to guarantee prices to farmers. And ADB will also develop, the balance sheet will grow better, the whole nation will grow, employment will be on the ascendancy, because now we are talking about value chain financing, agri-value chain financing.
CEO of the National Food and Buffer Stock Company, Hanan Abdul Wahab, explained to Joy Business the funds received will be used to acquire grains for the free SHS program and other government institutions.
From 2017 till date, there is an increase in production under the Planting for Food and Jobs, and more farmers are on board of the program, and we are also expecting increase in production. So the 50 million Ghana cedis is actually going to be used to purchase excess grains from farmers through our licenses, registered licenses buying companies. But we are actually looking out to mobilize what we think it can sustain government program like the Free Senior High School program, where we are looking at least about 500,000 bags of maize to sustain the program now that we are having third years coming on board.
The 50 million Ghana cedis is the first tranche of a total of 200 million Ghana cedis the bank intends to support the National Food and Buffer Stock Company with. For Joy Business, Sheila Tamaklo reporting.
AngloGold Ashanti says it will respect local content requirements by ensuring semi-skilled and unskilled locals get fair opportunities in the company's personnel recruitment. The Obuasi mine has been under care and maintenance since 2016 and is currently working towards pouring first gold in December. Ongoing construction activities have already seen over 3,000 workers employed to work on underground tunnels, production plants and other important components. Head of Operations Brett Thompson says the majority of the workforce are from Obuasi and surrounding communities. Ohim Interior has more.
AngloGold Ashanti signed a 5-year underground mining contract with Underground Mining Alliance, which comprises Ghana's Rookshore International and Australia's African Underground Mining Services for the Obuasi Redevelopment Mine. The agreement, worth $375 million, is for developing mechanized and underground mining expertise in Ghana's local mining and engineering sector.
At the moment, because we have a large number of construction activities going on in the process plant, there are additional people coming in. We probably have in excess of 3,000 on site currently. And for permanent employees, we're still recruiting the people for the process plant who will operate the process plant, which is obviously not operational yet. And as the mining operations expand further, we'll introduce new activities. Right now we're only developing, but towards the end of this year we'll establish stoping activities. And then mid next year we'll bring on some major infrastructural refurbishments.
AngloGold Ashanti says its existing recruitment drive has definitive local content supervised by the Minerals Commission, a procedure Mr. Thompson describes as good.
The ongoing recruitment process has a very definitive local content requirement, and that's not just from us, it's good business for us, but also it's well controlled by the Minerals Commission as well. In terms of local employment, the majority we are trying to source, of course, certainly the unskilled and semi-skilled exclusively from the Obuasi communities. Where we can't find those skills here, obviously we'll look to elsewhere in Ghana, and then for a limited period, and that's very well controlled again by the Minerals Commission.
It is a common practice for locals, especially the youth, to line up at AGA offices in search for employment. Municipal Chief Executive for Obuasi, Elijah Adansibona, is happy about the turn of events so far.
I can say without mincing words that Obuasi people are being employed. Not all of them. You won't get everybody being employed by AGA. Some will be employed, others can go elsewhere because we have other mining companies. So if people of Obuasi want everybody to be employed, then we are demanding too much from AGA.
Locals seeking employment with AGA must first have their forms endorsed by traditional authorities, assembly and unit committee members. Mr. Adansibona is hopeful this would help track the number of indigents employed by AGA.
AGA has a local employment procedure. Previously it was not there, but as a result of our engagements, they have put together the local employment procedure. You pick a form, you take it to your community. Your chief, your queen, your unit committee chairman, your assembly member, and any of these people, I mean, not any, all the three must endorse. Then you submit the form to the company. So they know that you are an indigene, you come from Obuasi. It doesn't mean only Obuasi people will get the opportunity. We know that we don't have some of all the experts here, people with the right expertise. We don't have all of them here. So they would have to go out and then, but we expect AGA to employ more of our people.
From Obuasi for JoyNews, Ohiminteria reporting.
Now, power distribution company PDS says it will go through due process by complying with terms of transaction executed between it and the ECG. This follows an announcement by government for a suspension of a deal citing issues with its financial guarantee covering the concession agreement. Energy expert Ishmael Jekumahene joins us on the phone with more of this. I heard you in the morning, sir. By the way, thanks for your time. Talk about how unexpected this was. Now, you have been digesting the news, you have been listening to views, opinions. What do you make of the announcement we had last night?
Good evening to your listeners. Well, I think my simple understanding is that government thinks that there's been a fundamental breach of a major covenant in the concession agreement, and for that reason they are going ahead to suspend the arrangement until they've established whether indeed what they found is actually true and whether that constitutes good enough or strong enough legal basis for them to cancel the agreement. So in short, listening to all the things that everybody has said from last night till now, that's what I make of this whole thing, and the fact that government is unhappy about something, and they, as the owner of the assets, it's of the view that it's better they suspend the concession agreement for the time being.
But how did we get here? One would expect that during transactions like this, there's due diligence. I mean, Miracle gave assurance of their financial muscle to handle this concession.
Okay, so I wouldn't be able to answer that question, and as to why some of those agreement, some of the things that ought to have been done, until we hear from the main transaction advisor or the ones who were in charge of this media to explain to Ghanaians. Because if you notice carefully, the guarantees were initially submitted to media, who forwarded it to ECG. So if you following this process, it's media that actually did all the procurement, the selection, and they were the ones who probably received the guarantees that they forwarded to ECG. So maybe we should be asking MIDA to explain to us how that happened. But I think there's been a number of shiftings as far as some of these condition precedents. Some were moved when certain things were not ready, especially when the PDS people said when they were ready to take over, the tariff ought to have been a condition precedent that was subsequently changed to condition subsequent. So I think MIDA will also have to explain to us how that happened. But again, at this stage, I think the government itself concedes that it's something that requires further investigation, and some of the explanations we've received indicate that they're pursuing every lead to satisfy themselves that indeed there's been an infraction. But if there's an infraction, it doesn't mean that automatically the concession agreement ceases to be valid. I believe the agreement has provisions for what happens if something like this happens. If indeed it's established and that's what the agreement says, then, I mean, nobody can fault the asset owners if they decide to exercise that right. But I believe the agreement, every such agreement will probably say that you notify the other party and then maybe give that other party the opportunity to respond or maybe correct whatever infraction, unless that actually renders the agreement voidable. But I think this is more of what the agreement says, and it's a matter of law, and whether or not, if indeed some fraud had been perpetrated, whether that constitutes enough basis for suspension and maybe cancellation of the concession agreement.
And there are concerns that Ghana likely would be thrown in another judgment debt crisis. What are you reading from all of this?
I think judgment debt is when there is a dispute and there is no understanding. I believe if there's going to be a termination, it will have to be mutual. And I think the courts only award judgment debt when the issues are in contention. Here, I believe it should be clear to everybody whatever commitment people have made, and if indeed there's supposed to be termination. I'm not saying that's where it's going to go, but if there's ultimately going to be termination, what is reasonable and fair will be given to each party, and then I suspect that there will probably be a very peaceful divorce. But if that doesn't happen, then yes, the courts will have to decide who is in the wrong and who is breaching the agreement, and where that is established, whatever compensation that needs to be paid would have to be paid. But otherwise, I think we are far from that as far as I'm concerned. Not until we hear clearly. Government needs to establish what they are saying. We need to hear from PDS. MIDA itself will also have to tell us what's going on here. And then we see. But judgment that I think is a little bit far-fetched at this stage.
Very well. Thanks for your thoughts tonight. You heard energy expert Ishmael Ejekumhene. Let's move on now. Contractors may be compelled to demand payment of their outstanding debts with interest. President of the Institute of Planners, Kwesi Opoku, told Joy Business at the second annual lecture of the construction industry in Accra that persistent failure by government to settle their arrears is affecting their ability to service their indebtedness to banks. Now, Kwesi Opoku says contractors have no option than to demand payments with high interest rates. There's more in this report.
Government, for instance, owes road contractors to the tune of 3.6 billion cedis, a situation they say makes it difficult for them to service their indebtedness with various banks. Unfortunately, government has still not been able to clear the outstanding debts as of now. At the second annual lecture of construction, industry surveyors and planners mince no words. President of the Institute of Planners, Kwesi Opoku, says the contractors are advocating an authority that will help regulate award of contracts and to offer a level playing field. He also stated that contractors will demand payment with interest.
Governments and even the contractors must ensure or insist from the beginning, is there money for me to be paid at the end of the job? Give me a certain percentage. We are now trying to even work about issues such as if we delay the payment, it will attract interest. And that's what the CEDA is trying to do, an authority that will regulate. If all these things are done, then we believe that before a contract is awarded, some assurance of money is there.
The Minister for National Security, Albert Kandapar, admitted delaying payment should not be encouraged. However, he advised contractors to ensure due diligence in their work to foster development.
All that we're doing in this country will be meaningless unless we can develop the economy. And we cannot develop the economy unless we do have the economic infrastructure. It is true that a road is constructed from here to Kumasi, a quantity surveyor says, beautifully done, and yet, after 6 weeks, we see cracks all over the place. While we condemn government for delayed payments, let's also condemn our members.
Ghanaian-based lecturer at London South University, Professor George Ofori, who was the guest speaker, said the construction industry contributes about 5 to 10% of the economy. He urged government to give some opportunities to the local contractors.
Everywhere that they actually are serious about the construction industry, it contributes between 5 and 10% of the economy, just by itself, its own activities. We're talking about value added, which means this is what it itself has done. The Ghanaian construction industry actually needs quite a number of things. The very first one is to be given the opportunity, the job opportunities. Yes, if it's given the job opportunities, then those other factors would happen in terms of its contribution.
Some contractors are threatening a demonstration to demand full payment of the allowances. Alberta BCU's report for Joy Business.
Now, 9 months ago, law student Millicent Dodofoli decided to break out of her shyness to start a business. She was not going to start anything extraordinary, just sell Willy. But it is how she decided to market the spiced fried ripe plantain that has drawn attention to her business, Willy Express. She's our feature tonight on the Joy Business Van. Millicent Dodofoli is very industrious but shy. She's currently pursuing a career in law, but she's a businesswoman at heart. You can't take that away from her. But stepping out was a big challenge until she had this.
I'm not the type of person who wants to be idle. So I find it difficult to cope with the current situation now. Cooking has been one of my passion and growing up. So I started what we call the rat kitchen, where I supply foods to people at financial institutions.
The story of a manager of Defined Capital Bank who lost his job during the banking sector crisis and decided to grill pork for a living.
I saw that documentary, I was like, wow, if this man can do this, let me also put this shyness aside and start. So that was where the motivation came from.
With the help of friends and family, she got onto it. Millicent is not exactly new to business. She used to operate a cafeteria in school. That was in her small corner, but now she has to step out and sell Willy on the streets. Well, Ghanaians love our Willy, the spiced fried ripe plantain, and there are countless Willy joints in town. Millicent had to think of how to differentiate her product.
I needed to add some touch and a twist to it, so I thought of it and I was like, see, right now in Ghana, everything is branding and packaging and how well you market yourself. So I decided to discuss with a friend of mine, a graphic designer. So I told him about how I wanted it packaged and all that. We discussed it and we made it happen. So I told him that we need to brand it. We are taking it to the car. Now, this is Willy. It needs to be eaten hot. So how are we going to package it to preserve that heat in it for people to get it hot all the time? And we wanted to do away with polythene plastics. You get it. We wanted to be eco-friendly.
Her fried Willy, spiced with her own recipe, is wrapped in leaves and placed in a branded paper bag. That makes Willy Express stand out aside from its taste. In 9 months, Millicent has been able to establish 5 sale points and can sell over 1,000 packs in a day. She recounts her first day in business.
Our first branch opening was at Vineyard. So we got there and then they didn't bring oil. We had to make somebody pick Okada, go back to the house, bring the oil, they brought it. Everything was just messed up. And then we finally started. When we were about to set the fire to, it won't light. We called people to come and help. So I was like, see, I am not into this. Already it was 5:30, we've not started with one. I just lost hope. I was crying.
Today, Millicent can afford to laugh over it. Thanks to her business, she's been able to create jobs for at least 40 people. Seeing that plantain can be seasonal, how does she manage when there is a shortage?
No, initially we wake up at 4, go to the market, get the plantain. So then you can go there, the cars have not arrived. They'll tell you they didn't get plantain from the farmers and all that. And it was really, really expensive. It was like 3 times the price that we used to buy. And I was like, see, I can't quit either. So we just need to compromise and improvise something. So we look at the major areas that we sell, then we serve them, then the other ones to close them. So we add a team on grounds to the new teams, and then we go to work.
And oh, Millicent has to grapple with ridicule too.
You know, this route is at least to my school, so normally you see the students, and then they'll see you as, hey, is this not this quiet girl? What's she doing by the roadside? You come back to school, people will see you as, oh, you're nobody, because she just sells Willy. Then even the name alone, they'll be laughing at you because there are lots of foreigners in my school. So when they hear the name, it sounds funny, Willy. Then they could just discourage you with the look and the way they say it, the way they describe the whole business. And I was like, see, I know what I want and I know where I'm heading towards, so I won't make it disturb me at all. So I just had to overcome the shyness. You know, something you can come to the roadside where you're frying, people will be passing funny comments, silly comments, something will encourage you. So I was just dealing with encouragements. And I had to move on with encouragement.
So at that time that you look back and you're like, you're very happy you did this?
Yes, yes.
Tell me about those moments.
The moments where I know that at least I'm feeding over 30 to 40 families a day because they all depend on me.
Now, Millicent aims to build the biggest Willy restaurant in Ghana. Well, that's Business Live tonight. You can always keep up to date on our website, myjoyonline.com/business. We've got the day's latest stories over there, plus videos of our bulletins, just in case you missed out on any one of them. The website to go, myjoyonline.com/business. My name is Darryl Kwao. Thanks for watching. We are back same time tomorrow.